G'day, I'm Craney and welcome to One Last Kick. We are on the road again to continue our mission to relive some of the past glories of football clubs that have had to close their doors. Today we're heading to the Upper Great Southern Football League to talk to some of the players, the coaches, find out the grounds they played on, the premierships they may have won, and most of all catch up with some of the characters that made up the club. We've been on the road now for an hour and a half, so it's time to get out and stretch the pins. And today's stopover town is Williams. 160 odd k's southeast of Perth on the Albany Highway, population of about 500. Now Williams Footy Oval still has a trotting track around it. And I remember as a kid sitting out under the pines, just having a day at the trots. It was a great afternoon. Williams Footy Club, well, they wear the blue and white striped jumpers of Geelong. And you guessed it, they're called the Cats. Williams was a founding member of the Upper Great Southern Football League, which started in 1959. But they had to wait a while for success. They had to wait until 1982 to win their first premiership. They had a huge party in Williams, so the story goes. They must have enjoyed that party because they've now gone on to win 11 flags up until this date, the most in the Upper Great Southern Football League. A pretty fair effort, don't you think? We've still got a bit of our journey to go, so it's time to jump in the wagon and head off down the track. Well, we've arrived at our destination, the town of Cuballing. You can feel the history in this place as soon as you step out of the car. In the early days, there was talk of Cuballing being the main rail hub for the region, but Narrogin got the nod 14k down the track. But we're here to find out about the Cuballing Football Club. They were a founding member of the Upper Great Southern League in 1959. And it didn't take them long to become a powerhouse of that league. They won their first flag in 1961 and went on to win 9 flags before they had to close their doors in the mid-80s. We're parked outside the Cuballing Tavern and they tell me there's a great deal of interesting football memorabilia inside that we can have a look at later on in the show. There's also rumour there's a couple of ghosts that live in the tavern called Ted and Mary. So who knows, we may even get to meet them. But now it's time to find some of the locals. And they tell me the best place to do that is the Cuballing Shire. G'day Michelle, is it?
Yes, it is.
I'm Craney. It's fun that spoke to you on the phone.
Yes.
Now tell me, what do you do at the Cuballing Shire?
I am the Community Development Officer for the Shire of Cuballing.
That's an impressive title. What do you actually do in that?
Well, arrange
I love
events.
The title,
yeah, I know, definitely. Arrange events, liaise with the community, just have fun, really.
Now, when I spoke to you on the phone, you've got a real passion
Yes.
for not only this Shire, and where does it go out to Popanini?
Yes, correct.
How big is
Yep.
the Shire? And
So
tell us about your passion for it.
So we have 902 residents within the Shire of Cuballing. So we're not really that big, so to speak, as in like other ones, but we're pretty force to be reckoned with.
Oh,
of
we're
course.
powerful.
Yes, yeah. Popanini, Cuballing, and we've got a little town, well, which is a town site of Your Nanning. It's got 7 residents and a couple of houses, but it does boast the Your Nanning Dam, which is beautiful for a picnic or a camp.
I hear it's a beautiful spot
It
to
is,
put up
yes.
a tent. Now, when we were driving through the town, the buildings all look fresh and repainted. Is that something that the Cuballing Shire have been focused on?
Yes, so we repainted the buildings 2 years ago, I think now, just freshens them up. We've got a lot of tourists come through. They come down the main street, well, down the street, Campbell Street here, and they stop and they take photos and then if you read any reviews of Cuby, they're always, oh, you should see the old buildings that are around.
I love the red telephone box down at the post office.
Yes.
I stopped in, didn't turn into Superman, but
No.
looks excellent.
Yeah, well, that's privately owned now, so the lady that has done a great job in restoring the post office back to original almost. Yeah.
Nice. Well, we're here to learn a little bit about the Cuballing Football Club. Now, I know it closed its doors quite a while back, and probably before your time.
Yes,
what do you
definitely,
know about it?
So I know what I have heard from around the traps and what I've read. So I did go to one of the reunions when all the boys come down and sat and listened to some of their stories. It was great. One of our local works guys used to play juniors on there. He's not much of a talker, but every now and then he'd sneak in a little bit back when I played football, so yeah.
Isn't it amazing over the years how much better footballers they become, how much further they could kick, how higher marks they took?
Yes.
That's a great thing about reunions.
Yeah.
Now, they tell me that you've got a little present in this thing, original Cuballing jumper.
Yes, we do, in this lovely brown suitcase.
I love them brown suitcases. They've been around for a while, haven't they?
Nice and sturdy, of course, yep. So we have...
How good is that? The Cuballing Football Club jumper.
Yep.
And the number 22.
Yep, lovely wool.
Yes, it'd get pretty heavy when that got wet.
Yes.
Now tell me, the number 22, who wore it?
I don't know.
There's no pressure.
I don't know, but there is a bloke in QB who absolutely loves the number 22, so he has to have number 22 on all of his number plates. If I was to make a guess, I would say it might be him.
Can we say his name?
Yeah, Tom Whitwer. So
well, there you go, Tom, number 22.
If it was him.
Do you reckon it'd fit him?
Yes, yeah, I reckon it would still fit him, but it would have been I reckon it might have been a bit big for him back in the day, so I could be wrong.
Might be a bit of stretch if I put it on though.
Well.
Now, you've organised a few of the past players to meet up with us.
Yep.
Who are we going to meet up with and where are we going to meet them?
So we're going to go to the rec centre, which is where the the football was played once upon a time, and we're going to meet with Ken Ashworth, and he has organised a few. So he's the one that has been organising the reunions. So each November at the pub, they catch up and have a yarn, and yeah.
Great job. I look forward to catching up. Shall we go and have a look?
Yeah, definitely, yep.
G'day Ken, how are you mate?
Yeah,
Alan Craney.
Pleased to meet you.
Mate, I spoke to you on the phone. We want to relive some of the past glories of the Cuballing Football Club, and they tell me you're the man to speak to.
Well, actually I'm one of the younger ones. I actually missed out on all those years when they won the 7 grand finals, but I can always remember watching them as a young fella, so I'll tell you, they were a mighty impressive football side.
So as a young fella, you used to go to the footy a fair bit?
Oh yeah,
with your folks?
Yeah, used to go and watch them. I think I watched every grand final that Cuballing played in, and used to play them at Clayton Road in Narrogin, and yeah, they were good.
Did you have a hero in them days?
Oh, trying to think. Yeah, actually, I always remember one of the funny ones was little Party Dempster, a little bald-headed Aboriginal fellow we had in their side, and yeah, he was fast. He was a clever footballer.
And as you grew up, that's what you wanted to do? Play for Cuballing?
Yeah, well, actually, because my dad was involved in towns, that's all I wanted. Well, I left school and I came out here and caused a bit of a rift in the family. It was the best move I ever made, because we actually live in the Cuballing district, and I couldn't see why I was playing in Narrogin. I had to play any more football.
Oh, so there was a bit of a rift for you to come out and join Cuballing. Now, Cuballing, Tigers?
Yeah, well, well, I don't think we had the Cuballing Tigers until Colin Beard came down and coached us. And he came down and thought we had to have a song. Well, we didn't know what we needed a song or not, so because he'd just come back from Richmond, so he
incorporated the whole lot.
We were black and gold. Yeah.
Do you remember your first league game?
Oh yeah, I do actually. I think I shouldn't tell too many stories. The 2 blokes picked me up at the farm. I was playing at Bonington, and those days I shouldn't say this, but I won't even tell you who they were. They popped a can in the front, a beer on the way to the footy, and they were both playing, and I looked at them and said, "What are you doing?" And I was only 17, and they said, "Well, this is your first game, you can't have one."
That's 17-year-old. Did you get a kick?
Oh yeah, I think I got a kick, yeah.
Oh, that's good. Now, you've rounded up a few of the past players, and I think there's a president as well.
Yeah, well, I think everyone's been a president or past president, because as a small club, you know, all the players are on the committee basically. I mean, we had a nucleus of parents, I guess, and local farmers, and you know, they were all parents, I guess, of the kids that played that supported the club. So it was a community effort. I mean, that was a good thing about it, wasn't it? It was such a small community, and we seem to be able to thrive on we're having good footballers out here.
Can I ask you something too? You know, you're a community man, obviously. How important is a footy club to the community?
Oh, I think I don't think it's just the footy club. It followed on into the cricket club as well. But it's so important, isn't it? In those days, you know, it was your Sunday out. It brought everyone together and just gave you an interest, I guess.
Yeah.
And you shared common ground with everybody, and that friendships carried on. I mean, a lot of us are all, like myself, all left the district now, as farms have been sold, but those friendships are just locked away, aren't they? They're never going to change. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you guys went from the footy club to the cricket club to the tennis club and the golf club?
Basically, yeah.
Well, I reckon we could, I see a few of them gathering up there. Should we go and meet them?
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the interesting ones, you're looking at the oval here now, was green. If you ever saw the Cuballing oval, it was actually on a heck of a slant downhill, so the water drained off, and it was a dirt track. And I think when I always look back, and when Cuballing, we used to be always able to track the school teachers and the local policemen that kept the club going from Narrogin when they come to town. And when the town clubs put their grass oval in, they'd come out for one training run, and that was sort of like the period where we battled, I always felt.
Do you reckon that made a difference?
Oh, big.
With
yeah,
because looking out now, it's lush and green.
Yeah.
But I seem to remember playing a game out here, and it didn't look like that, I can tell you, Ken. Yeah.
And we had a few, well, I can remember one league game down here, I think it was Stephen Hill from Subiaco come down to play, and he walked off, and I think he came back and played one more game, and as he walked off, he said, "You blokes are mad." He said, "What the hell am I doing down here playing on this oval?"
Had the Mercura cream and the Flavine and all go.
Yeah.
All right, Ken, let's wander across and meet the crew.
Righto, thanks.
Well, Ken, we have put together some Cuballing Football Club legends. They tell me they're legends.
Yeah, no.
Is that true? Let's start. Let's introduce them to us.
Well, the history's been recorded, and they are all legends. We've got Peter Hansen here, who was one of our past great players, and also towards the end when we had the battle, Peter took on the job as president and was also our coach at the final year as well.
Were you a cranky coach? I'm going to ask these boys, because some of them played under you.
No use getting cranky, but they would have just left. So we were battling for numbers, so we stayed friends.
Beautiful.
And the next one we got is Peter George, who played in 5 of our grand final sides. Peter was always been a strong supporter of the footy club. And, yeah.
Very much a numbers man, not a star.
But 5 grand finals.
Oh, well, a bit lucky.
You must have thought how easy it is to get into grand finals.
Had a lot of good blokes around me, you see.
I'm sure you linked it all together.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And we've got Ronnie Wees here today, who's flown up from Albany, which is very good of him to come up. And Ron's probably our most senior player here today.
I was going to say your arms must be tired, but that'd be a joke.
And he goes back to the days when Wally Sidebottom was first appointed. As they say, that's the time when Cuballing Football Club turned professional. And the story goes, I think Ronnie will probably tell you some more stories, but they came off the ground at half time, and Wally looked around, he only had half his side in the change rooms, and he said, where is everybody? And someone said, oh, they're having their cup of tea and hot soup at half time. And that was the last time they had a cup of tea and a hot soup.
Which one were you, Ronnie? Were you in the change rooms or were you having a bit of soup?
I was a young boy then, so I was in having a cup of tea. Yeah, I started in about 57 and played, well, we got Wally Sidebottom was the first, I think, ever professional coach in the state outside of Perth. And he changed Cuballing around dramatically. And we were fortunate having Parnell Dempster turn up the year before, and he set the place alight. It was brilliant to watch. Not the best football I've seen, because he used to kick it in the wrong pocket all the time. And we went from strength to strength then.
Can I just go back to that? So Wally was the first paid coach to come down?
Yes.
What made you decide as a club that you required that?
Well, we went for probably 30 years and might have won 10 games.
And that's probably a good reason.
Yes, I think so. And the town clubs in town were trying to close us up anyway to get a few good footballers we had. And the committee decided to take a punt, and I think they paid him £1,000.
So who have we got next door to Ronnie?
We've got Robbie Carter. He's part of the famous Carter family from Cuballing. They had, 3 brothers play, Rob? 4, maybe 5.
No, all did, but there was 3 of us that played here. Came up through the D grade originally, then C grade, and played with my older brother Stephen, younger brother Gavin. Gavin went on he played his first league game here when he was 15 against Keith Miller, who was a state player from Wickapin. Gavin went on to play, I think it was 1984, the Australian Footy Championships. Played at full-back, played 3 State of Origin games, and they went on to win that carnival actually. Ended up beating Victoria. One of the very few times they've been beaten.
Yeah.
Victoria.
That's a pretty handy resume. What about yourself? We're happy to stay with the local league?
I just stood under the shadow of Stephen and Gavin.
And who is this?
Oh, the
Lovely
bloke
gentleman.
on the left here was probably one of our best left footers, or maybe not one of the best ones, but...
No, you're going to claim it as your best left foot,
Ray,
aren't you?
Ray,
Let's just claim it, Ray.
And I think Ray will probably tell you he was probably the youngest person to play in one of the footy grand finals. I think you were 15, Ray?
15, yeah. Played in the 63 grand final, and one of the most things that I was still going to school of ag in Narrogin, and Monty Whitford wouldn't allow us to play in the year before because he said you were too young, 14. He said no, you can't play. And I remember Blondie Kavanagh coming out there and saying to Mr. Butfield, or Monty as we knew him, he said this bloke's got to play for us. We need him in our team. And that was the 62 grand final, and Monty wouldn't let me play, which my father thought was very good because he thought I was too small and too young. Anyway, 63 I eventually got into the grand final team, and Monty allowed me to play. And when I walked through the gates of the Narrogin Oval, I looked up, and on the gate there was Gabo and his rangatangs will get a hiding from town today. And I, as a 15-year-old boy, I looked at that and I said, geez, that makes me proud to think that these rangatangs are going to get these fellas all of hiding. And I tell you what, at quarter time it was 8 goals, 2 to nothing.
That's right.
Whereabouts did you play? Did you start on the ground?
No, half forward flank. Yeah, I did start
on the ground?
Started on the ground.
So how was it as a 15-year-old young fella? Because the footy was pretty tough back then.
I've got to be honest with you, I just couldn't believe that I was amongst men. And I remember running across the field one day to take the ball, and I cut Blondie Kavanagh off. Well, I tell you what, when you cut Blondie Kavanagh off, you know. He came up to me and he had hold of me like that, and he said, you ever do that again, son, you might never play again.
Now let me show. Blondie Kavanagh was on your side. He was.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a legend of the Cuballing Football Club.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
for Subiaco.
Yeah.
Very good.
Played in the
state side.
Yeah, played in the second state side
State,
against
yeah.
Victoria.
Very good player.
And last but not least,
Tom Whitworth. Tommy come to us probably later when the club was in the battling stage and was a damn strong supporter, and he was there every Sunday like we all were to keep the club ticking along.
Yeah, I played my junior footy here, and I played 6 or 7 years of seniors, mostly in the seconds. I did play some league, but that was when they were pretty short, but I liked drinking beer at 2:30 rather than 5. Probably I enjoyed the B grade better, but yeah, look, it was really good, except at the end we were just really battling for numbers and trying to find boundary umpires and goal umpires and all that sort of stuff, and you know, just keep the club running. It was almost a relief when it folded up in '85.
now they tell me, I'm not sure if it's true, you played in the jumper number 22.
Yeah.
If you didn't, we're going to say you did anyway.
Yeah.
Well, what is it about 22? Because I see you got 22 in your number plates.
Yeah, our phone number used to be 22, and so just that's what I've done. Always got all the 22s now.
So when you play lotto, it's definitely a 22.
Yeah, not that good though.
Right, I'm going to swing back to the captain coach. When did you take over the role as captain coach of this football club?
And 85.
85.
Yep.
So The club was in a bit of strife at that stage.
Yep.
Did you have to have a bit of ring around to get your sides together?
Yeah, we rang around, but it was getting that way that, well, we turned up the first week, I think we had about 22, no B grade, and only a few juniors, so we were buggered. But anyway, we played a couple of more games, and I think the third game, I reckon it was the third game we
Oh, I thought it was the second, but you might be
yeah,
right.
I think it was the third game. We played Whitford and we got beat by 40 goals, and that was the following week. I think it was it a Thursday night, Tom? We had a meeting, or a Wednesday night, or it was after that game.
Yeah,
we had a meeting. Was Tom will tell you, it probably wasn't bloody constitutionally right, but we had a meeting. We knew we were a bit buggered, and we sort of the other when we folded up, the other teams were all dirty because Boddington had got such a great percentage against us, and the other teams weren't going to get a percentage, so they reckoned that the competition was going to be uneven. But anyway, so then we went. We all sort of agreed at the meeting. We had a general meeting at the pub, as that's where we have the meetings, and it was sort of decided that we'll go to the league, and if they decide that's it, that's it. So we went to the meeting, and then they decided that we'll fold. So,
What about your playing career? When did you start playing for
Me?
the mighty Tigers, isn't it, boys?
Yeah,
That's it.
Yeah, the fight. Well, I played a little bit of juniors here before I went away to ag school at Bindoon, and then I come back in 70, and then I played B grade and then to A grade, and yeah, kept going from there.
Nice.
So-
Did you make any of those grand final sides?
Yeah.
Which ones did
one
you
or
play?
two. I can't remember the dates.
Oh, come on, I bet you. Speaking of grand finals,
Yeah.
we've got a grand final bloke who just
Yeah.
picks them off the tree.
He's got numbers.
Which was the best one, mate, or were they all the same?
66.
What made 66 so special?
Weren't expected to win it.
Yeah, right. So
Little
you went
bloke
through the
has-
season?
Well, I think at halfway through the season we'd only won 4 games, Brown.
That's right. Yeah, right. Yes.
So they did the mathematics and said if we win every game from here on, we'll have a premiership. Well, they didn't win every game. We drew one against Federals.
Yeah, that's right.
They won all the rest though. Now this bloke over here we're talking about, in 66 he kicked 5 goals in the grand final off half forward flank.
So what were you doing for the rest of the time?
Playing,
Looking for
no,
the
he's
sixth.
playing darts.
No, I think that was the best one, 66. Yeah.
So 5 goals? And whereabouts did you play? What spot did you
Oh,
line up?
back pocket.
All your career was out
Oh
of the back line?
no, I got out of. I played on the wing for a while. I played on the wing a little while in '66 when the grand final was back pocket.
Yeah.
Through my career, I've spent a fair bit of time in defence, half back flank. But I say the big highlight of that game was Brownie's 5. Well, there were other highlights as well, but Brownie I thought was a.
Tell me, Brownie, were they all dead set straight in front, or did you kick one from 80? You know, you got to get it. You can extend the story a little bit.
I can't remember the second one I kicked, but it went that far. I didn't see it land.
Did you kick 5 straight?
No, I hit the post with one.
Oh, so you could have had the 6.
Yeah, I did hit the post.
You wouldn't have got best player on that day, mate. What about yourself, Ronnie?
Oh, the best one without a doubt was 61.
That was the first one?
That was the first A-grade grand final Cuballing ever won. I mean, 51 was 59 we won the B grade. Well, that was good fun, but winning the first A-grade grand final ever, you know, nothing beats that. You know, it spoiled all the rest.
How was the tavern after that game? Did you?
Well, it was full.
And tell me,
Really
boys,
good.
they tell me Billy Duckworth come for a bit of a stint here.
Yep.
How was Big Bill?
It was great. Yeah, he was a good clubman, good footballer, and yep, it was good fun taking him home after the games too.
So he was only a kid when he turned up here?
Yeah, he played 1 year of C grade, and then Rod Duckworth come
Rod coached for a year, yeah.
and yeah, Billy played, yeah, at fullback.
During those years when the C grade, we used to battle out the C grade side, so the upper grade Southern agreed that we could have the kids from the hospital.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So, and those kids were going to the Narrogin Hospital. And during that period, I think we ended up having some really elite footballers. There was Ian Edwards from Beverley, the Keezer boys, the
Keezer.
Fancoat boys,
Yep.
and a lot of them all went on to
The
play.
Fancoat boys went on to play Whitford, didn't they?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and-
they were,
and for
and
Perth.
they were,
Yeah.
even though they were playing C grade, the following year when Colin Beard was here, he brought them all up into the league side. They still could have played C grade, most of them.
Yep.
And they played in the grand final side when Colin Beard was coach. Yeah.
It seems to me, just from listening to the stories, Cuballing got to a level of professionalism before the rest of the clubs.
Oh.
Would that be a fair call?
Oh, well and truly.
You
Yeah.
lifted the standard of the upper
Yeah.
grade Southern?
Except for their facilities, yeah.
All right, let's talk about this facility, because I sit and look out here now and it's beautiful and green. Maybe it wasn't quite like that when you blokes were running around?
No, not quite.
See the level of the ground over there? That's faded off, and that would have dropped another 3 feet over the other side.
So she had a fair sort of slant.
Yeah, you always kick the ball up here and you kick goal down that way.
What
Yeah.
was Wally Sidebottom's theory? Waste a kick to get it on the top side.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, so he wanted to bring it this side?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you.
It's pretty hard kicking it up.
Oh, well, kicking goals the other side was very difficult.
And there was no grass. There was I'd gill for grass and a bit of stinkweed down the bottom end of it.
And gravel
You
stains.
must have good eyesight, I reckon.
Now, trainers over the years, they're always good for a story. And do you blokes have a couple of, well, they're hard to find now. Do you have a couple of good trainers?
Yep.
Stan Barley would have been the main one, I would have thought.
Yeah.
Stan's theory was you didn't run to the player when he went down because you walked out there, because if he was still down when you walked out there, when you got to him, he needed you. But if you ran, he'd get up just as you got there.
It's a pretty fair call.
Stan probably couldn't run too well anyhow.
I do remember the day I broke my wrist down in the game, and Stan came out and my hand was hanging like that, and he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I don't know, it's sort of not, couldn't lift it up." He said, "Oh, he put some spray on it and bangs it up." And I came in at half time and I was absolute agony. It was actually John Whitford, our 300 gamer. He said, "Ken, you don't look too good, let me have a look at that arm for you." And he just called the bloke over and said, "Take this bloke to hospital, will you?" He said, they took the bandage off, my arm was still hanging. But Stan was keen to keep me playing, you know. So,
Speaking of John Whitford, we're hoping to catch up with him later on down at the local hotel.
Yep.
300 games, he must have been something pretty special as a footballer, but I'm not going to tell him that, so we don't boost up his ego too much. But what sort of player was he?
oh, tough. John actually went down and played for Eastern Mantle. I think he probably tell he played his 6 or 7 games in there that they used to do under agreement they had with the league. He only played so many. If you played any more, you had to stay. And I think only, if you wanted to describe him, Alan Mycock, who was playing for Claremont at the time, always said to me one day, he said, "Thank goodness John Whitford went back to Cuballing, because we did not want him down there in Perth." It was too hard.
When we had Colin Beard here playing,
Yeah.
at the end of the year, he said if John Whitford had come to Melbourne, he could have played fullback over there for any team.
That's a pretty big rap.
That was
come
Colin
from
Beard's
Beard.
rap. He said he was good.
Colin Beard, what was he like as firstly as a fellow to join the club, as a coach, and did he actually live in Cuballing or was he travelling?
No, he used to travel with Harry Bentley. Colin Beard was one of the coaches that I admired because he was a tactical person. He used to tell Jerry McCall, if you start on the boundary line there and this other fella, you start there, when the ball's bounced and you get the ball, then you run that way and you run that way. He had everyone moving. He was very tactical.
Was that the first you guys come across that sort of coaching?
No, yeah, for me it was, but these blokes here with Wally Sidebottom, those blokes, Gabo,
Gabo was brilliant.
Brilliant like that. So those sort of blokes, but I didn't play underneath these blokes, played underneath them blokes.
Colin went on to be a friend of a lot of the players here. Like he never, even though he went back to South Mantle and coach, he always kept in contact, and we always went down there and stayed at his place and different.
So his heart and soul was in this
Oh
club.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's got a real reflection of being a community club too. You know, most of the town would have been invested in what you guys were doing.
Oh, 100%.
What about the crowds? Did you get a good crowd when you had those wins? What were they cheering when you kicked those 5?
I don't know, I just car horns were tooting behind the goals.
I think the club battled all the way. I mean, a lot of the players were on the committee and doing things. So we had a group, a nucleus of retired footballers, I guess. But a lot of people, when they left the club, unfortunately were young enough, they go and play golf and that. So I think the club probably battled even in the good days for numbers.
Yeah.
For people, you know, to support the club off the ground, apart from players.
Well, that's when you look at your population in your town wasn't big, but to win 9 flags over that period, that's an enormous effort. You know, it's something to be pretty proud of we've spoken about the players. What about the presidents or past presidents? Was there, or the ladies in the canteen? Was there someone that stood out and that looked after you guys?
You got to mention Ruby Grout, Brownie. she used to take them on, all the opposition. She used to let them know. When there was a free kick, she let them know.
So Ruby was.
She was
just a supporter.
She was worked in the canteen. She did a lot of work.
She did a lot of work. Yeah, she was. He didn't stand alongside her.
I've got a feeling there's a story going to come out of here somewhere.
I think the footy club, John Whitford brought it up, the footy club in the older, it wouldn't have survived without the ladies' committee. You know, the money they raised, they go back for us boys to waste on buying a footballer, as I used to say.
I think it's underestimated in country footy, isn't it, the amount of help the ladies did. We spoke to a lady in Cranbrook who had a bit of trouble with scones. Did you blokes, how was the morning teas here?
It was always good. Yeah.
And we're looking around this ground now, and there's some new facilities. Where was the old club rooms?
Right here.
Yeah.
Was it one of the old grandstands?
Yeah, no,
Tin shed.
nothing, just
There was a tin shed. There was no grandstand.
Shed.
Common shower for the opposition. There was a bit of a petition between the two club rooms because we had the bigger room than the clubs. Then we all shared the same shower, so if you had a blue on the oval, we had
Oh, so combined shower.
combined shower.
Gee, that's the umpires showered in there as well.
That's all in the bucket.
That's when you turned the gas off.
But we always had hot showers. We were one of the few clubs that did have good hot showers.
Yeah, that's
Not
I
my,
think Weezy might have better.
not in my time.
Your time was a bit different.
A lot. We had none for a start, and when we did get them, they were cold, icy cold. These young blokes had it real good.
Well, you should be able to tell us the time when you beat towns out here and they turned the bus upside down out here.
No, I didn't really know a lot about that, but I know it happened. But
You better fill us in. This sounds interesting.
Well, I was only young and I remember it happening. All of a sudden there's everybody's running out of the rooms and everything, and these towns supporters had upped our bus on us and turned upside down. And it was a bus to take the kids home back to the hostel.
Yep.
And then, anyway, I'll tell you what, there wasn't a lot of fun there for a while because there was a bit of blood going everywhere.
I reckon the other one about the bus, Brownie, was the Ken Leslie. We won the premiership, so we all got on the bus the next day, and we went up to Pingelly to have a few beers with them because we'd beaten them, we'd given them a thrashing. Went up there and we all on the beer and having a drink, and then old Brooksy was driving the bus, and he said, "Come on, boys, look, we got to get home." So we said, "Yeah, righto." So we all walked out the bus. No, flat tyre. The front tyre had been let down. And one Pingelly boy, we walked in the pub. Well, it all went quiet. Anyway, we eventually got the tyre, free beer then for a while. We got the tyre fixed, come back here. All the good Pingelly blokes come up and said sorry. But the one bloke never came.
Just on that,
Yeah.
did you have a real rivalry with one particular club?
Oh.
Like, was there a club that Cuballing just...
Towns.
What about
Towns.
yeah, towns.
Towns were the main.
Towns something like to beat.
Towns controlled a lot. Yeah.
Oh, right, that was the one...
They had the main pub in town, and
I suppose Williams were never that friendly either, were they?
Oh, well, they had a bit of... Blondie and Eric Hansen married a couple of couches, and that didn't go down well. That's right. So it was on in the old days. It was on down there. There was a few fights on the ground.
Gentlemen, it has been absolutely fantastic to catch up with you all. A couple of you have got a couple of jumpers on. Shall we put the jumpers on and go for a bit of wander out the oval and have a bit of a re-mess? I've been carrying the footy, so I need to be able to kick it to someone.
I can still kick.
I think Kathy played all right, didn't he?
Showing off.
Before we headed back to the QB Tavern to catch up with 300 gamer Johnny Whitford, the players gathered to pay tribute to former player Rob Dowling, who passed away just before we visited the club. Well, there's only one player to have played 300 games for the Cuballing Football Club. That is John Whitford, and this is John Whitford. Welcome, mate.
Thank you very much, and it's quite a humbling experience to come back after the best part of nearly 40 years. In fact, it's a bit more than 40 years, I think, since I last played the last game of my career for Cuballing Football Club.
Time goes pretty quick. You were saying off air, though, that it took a while to break into the league side.
Well, I left school at the age of 16. I was 20 years of age before I could crack a game into the A grade side, so a good 3 years of B grade football, I suppose, stood me in good stead to be able to compete with men and to be able to break into the Cuballing football team at that time, which was 1965. We had a lot of Indigenous football players playing for Cuballing, and they were really something to behold. So, yep, having to be able to break in amongst them at fullback, that was my role. So, yeah, it's been a journey.
Do you remember much about the call-up when you actually realised, hang on, I'm in the league side?
No, I can't. I mean, it didn't matter. In those days, it didn't matter to me all that much whether I was playing B grade or A grade. I mean, you played wherever you were asked to play.
And you did go down to the Waffle for a little bit, had a bit of a crack at East Fremantle. What was that experience like?
Well, for a short period of time in 1970, well, that was when I was 25 years of age, was fairly old to crack into Waffle football. I had been signed up when I was 21 with Swan Districts, and you know, circumstances, marriage and a young child on the ground, that really didn't take off. So East Fremantle had a crack at me in 1970. So yes, I did go down. I trained with them. I went to South Australia, to Adelaide, played Central Districts in 1970 in the March period, and got a game there with East Fremantle. Eric Sarich being the coach at the time, which he didn't last very long. He finished up getting the sack. East Fremantle were in a bit of a turmoil at the time. They weren't doing all that wonderfully well. So at the end of 6 permits, I decided, well, and I think the family said, listen, you either make football or farming your career. So there was no doubt in my mind that farming was probably the best way to go. I didn't want to leave all my mates in Cuballing and go and play for a completely foreign team. So I suppose that's what you mean when you talk about loyalty to a club.
Well, that's what I'm getting. Everyone we've talked to has a real passion for the Cuballing Football Club. And we're looking around this room and you've got flags to galore. What was the first flag that you played in?
1966 was the first flag that I was involved in, Cuballing having won 2 previously. So 1966, and you know, thereon it became embarrassing. To be honest with you, it became embarrassing to continue to win flags. As you would walk off the ground after a grand final and you'd think, oh, well, this is number 3, this is number 4. There wasn't the same excitement that there was after the first one in 1966.
What made Cuballing so good? Because we're not talking about a Mickey Mouse competition, aren't we? The Upper Great Southern's a very good football league. Mm-hmm. Why was Cuballing up here and the rest had to catch up?
I think I could put my finger on it, and there was a number of farm boys of the similar age during that period of time. Farms were smaller. The farm boys, they weren't fitness cranks. They were naturally fit by the work that they would do. So the basis of our team was, I think, farm boys. And then we had all sorts of others that badly wanted to come out from Narrogin to join the QB Football Club because it was successful. and we had teachers and we had policemen and we had painters and we had Aboriginals, we had all sorts, and it was the club to belong to.
What about coaches along the way? Did you get on with most of them, or
Yes.
towards the end were you starting to?
No, towards the end I suppose, but we had some great coaches. I remember Ron Gabrielson, even though I took Gabo's place, as a matter of fact, at fullback. So Gabo, who was the coach of Cuballing at the time, I don't know, maybe he was getting too old or too slow or whatever. So that opened the door for me to come in and start and play at fullback. Probably one of the coaches that had the greatest influence on me would have been Charlie Tyson, you know, and Charlie Tyson was a waffle footballer, I think Subiaco and South Fremantle. And one of note, Charlie came up and filled a Guernsey for Cuballing in 1968, but my ears used to just be glued onto whatever Charlie said. So I would reckon he's been the biggest influence.
What made him stand out to you? Was it the way he worked in with the group of players? Was it the tactical side? What put him ahead?
I think rather he was an older footballer, and he was a very tough footballer. He wouldn't compromise. Charlie wouldn't compromise. The other one who had a great influence was Colin Beard, and Colin Beard, ex-Richmond Premiership player in 1972. Richmond won the Premiership. Colin Beard came back home to Western Australia. South Fremantle said to us that they would like to groom Colin Beard as the coach of South Fremantle, but to give him experience for 1 year, he was sent up to Cuballing. And so Colin Beard had a fairly big influence at that stage in 1973. We won a premiership with Beardy, and he was a backline player for Richmond, I think fullback at the time. And once again, Beardy,
He didn't kick you out of your spot, did he?
No, well, I got sick of fullback. I got sick of it because I could see there was so much more opportunity up the field for me. But as time moved on, I got the opportunity to play as a follower, as a ruckman, and I relished that posse.
I was going to ask you that. So you started your career at fullback.
Yeah.
How many seasons before they decided that you could leap and you were a tap ruckman? Not putting no pressure on the memory there.
Probably the best part of about 4 or 5 years at fullback.
So when you moved into the ruck, it would have been a bit of freedom?
Yes.
Going around the place?
And to be able to read the game, read the play, and you didn't have to chase a full forward. In those early days, you had to go shoulder to shoulder with your full forward, because the delivery of the ball in the years gone by was exemplary. And a full forward got one stride ahead of you, you were lost, you were gone.
Was there a full forward in the early days when you were playing full back that you went to train and thought, no, not him again?
Well, I think the hardest one I played against was Jeff Taylor from Whitford, and he finished up playing state football, was decorated footballer at West Perth. So, yeah, probably the other one, though he didn't play at full forward, but as a follower, Keith Miller would have been the hardest. Well, let me put it another way. Keith Miller was probably the best footballer that I ever played against or with in carnival football. He was an outstanding footballer from Whitford.
Now, we met some of your teammates earlier on. They said you were a no-nonsense footballer. You just, if someone was in the road, you sort of moved them out the road very quickly. Was that part of your make-up as a footballer?
Well, I wanted the football. And if teammates were in the way...
Oh, you took the teammates as well.
Well, they had to be shifted out of the way. Because I wanted the ball more desperately than what they did.
So did you go into coaching at all?
Not at all.
In your reigns? That wasn't something that went across your mind?
Too busy in farming, too busy to be locked into coaching. I didn't ever ascribe to want any money. I was offered many coaching positions, from Yearling to railways to federals to, I was offered many positions but never bothered to take them up.
As a ruckman going in, we watched some more set up game plans around the centre circle. Did you have a bit of a game plan with your ruck rover and rover about where you're going to hit it, or did you have a favourite tap zone?
No, it didn't really matter which way it went. I mean, purely and simply because of them being able to turn your wrist either way. And of course, the first part and the tallest part of your height to get to the ball was your fingers. So it wasn't hard to be able to direct the ball where you wanted.
What about characters? I mean, 300 games, you played a few seasons with the reserves, so you probably played 400 games all up, plus.
Yeah,
what about characters over the league? Did you run into anyone you thought, gee, mate?
Well, I made some very, very good friends. Lifelong friends from other teams, lifelong friends within the Cuballing Football Club too. And that's one of the greatest attributes, I think, of being able to play in a team, a successful team. And but as far as do other players stick in my mind, there are many, many other players that stick in my mind. And I think some of the players that were giving you earlier interviews happened to mention about did Ernie Dingo stick in my mind?
Yeah.
And it does. With
would you like to fill us in on that story?
I have a great deal of, well, I don't know whether it's sympathy, but I watch Ernie Dingo on TV and I think, Jesus, he's made good.
Tell us the story of the day you and Ernie, I wouldn't say come to blues, but...
No, we never came to blues, but we were playing Railways on that particular Sunday. And from my memory, it was well, I think the Narrogin paper wrote it up as a bloodbath out at Cuballing, because it was a very, very hard game. No quarter given or taken by either side. And I do recall Ernie Dingo, and he mightn't have been any older than 21 or 22 or so. He was slippery, and he was in the ruck. So what? Anyway, must have been a boundary throw in, I think, down past the tee shed. And I don't know whether he won the tap or I won, but anyway, he got the ball. And he thought, well, he was just going to beat me around the boundary, just going to, because he was slippery. And I thought, he's running out of room. He's running out of room. He's either going to run out of bounds or run into me. So, yes, he did. Well, he ran into me. The story probably doesn't say that I ran into him, but anyway, poor old Ernie Dingo finished up wrapped around the fence. And one of the railway trainers picked him up and said to him, well, come into the club rooms, I'll brush you off and sort you out. Anyway, as the story goes, and I wasn't there, but Ernie said, no, he said, I'm not going back on bugger them, they play too rough.
Right.
That's the story of Ernie Dingo.
It's a good story.
I would love to run across him again, and I have a deepest sympathy for the poor sod.
And it was a physical contest, and you did play the game hard.
I never got reported. I was never reported.
What was it like after the game between the two clubs? Did you go and have a drink together and call it quits?
Always. I don't think there was ever a team that Cuballing didn't mix with following games, win, lose or draw. That was the normal thing to do.
Moving along towards when it was just about time to quit, did you see the writing on the wall? Did you see it was time for John to call it quits?
Well, the truth of the matter is my brother, 4 years younger than myself, and both of us were playing perhaps fairly leading roles in the Cuballing Football Club, but we were also farming together. In 1980, which was my last season, we had separated, and so it was always a given that while you're farming together with your brother or family or whatever, there was always someone to back up if you got hurt or got injured. But so once that brotherly support, both him and I thought no. And what's more, my girls were growing up and it was time to follow them into their chosen area. So yeah, one door closed, another one opened, so there's no regrets.
You played a lot of footy over that time. When the club was starting to run short of numbers, did you get a few phone calls to say, can you come pull the boots on?
I think I made it perfectly clear. They'd given me my jumper, so I thought, well, that's it. They've given me my jumper.
Speaking of your jumper, number 13 sits proudly up in the Cuballing Tavern. Unusual, no superstitions for you?
No, I never had any superstitions. I thought, well, when 13 come available, well, it's the devil's number, and I couldn't really. I challenged the devil.
Nice.
So I thought, well, I'll take that jumper, and whatever comes, comes.
And when you did retire, you were saying they give you the jumper, so there was no 13 after that?
So I believe. There was no number 13 in the Cuballing jumpers. No.
Now, you were a major part of this football club, as I said, 300 games. What was it like when you heard the news that time was nearly up for the club?
Well, it was a year or two coming, because they struggled, and Cuballing Football Club did use a lot of hostel boys, ag school boys, to boost the numbers in the B grade. And so, you know, as time went on, Cuballing was unable to provide a B grade side, and that meant that the Cuballing Football Club had to fold, because, you know, it was more or less forced on them, because they couldn't provide a B grade side. So that was a lot of the time that you don't know who you've got until it's nearly time to start the season. You know, it's not like you're guaranteed of anything. And the other thing, most of the time, a lot of players didn't even turn up to training until it was time for the very first game. So that was the story. If you had enough, you had enough. If you didn't have enough, well, C graders used to, you know, come up if they were required. So yeah, it was always a battle.
Unfortunately, it's the Not Lone Ranger in the Cuballing Football Club. There's a lot of clubs that go by the wayside like that. Bad for country towns, but it's just the way things are going forward. John, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you, mate. 300 game player of the Cuballing Football Club. I congratulate you, and thanks for being on One Last Kick.
Oh, thank you very much. Hawksley, I said, well, you get out and you go and walk through it so that you can tell whether or not there's any holes in the road. So he hoiks his pants up, we see, and he's walking through, stepping in a bloody hole, as it was. So anyway, he said, just get around here and get around there and we'll get through. So I don't know, the water was a bit that up to about the bloody car doors, I suppose, but we did get through. Hawksley always tells that story about being tipped out to go and walk the bloody creek so we could get through.
So many great stories. Wonderful people with a real passion for their football club. A football club that provided great entertainment for the town of Cuballing. If you would like your club to be featured on this great show, please contact the details below. We'd love to see you.